Are you ready for an exclusive hunting adventure that has never been open to the public before? Well, you have the opportunity to take advantage of this premium hunting experience chasing big fallow bucks. Just 4 hours from Sydney and on 9,000 acres in the Liverpool Plains, you don't want to miss out on this free-range hunt that you won't believe. Even better is that listeners of the show get a discount on this awesome opportunity. For more information on pricing and to reserve your spot, send an email to australianhuntingandbeyond@gmail.com. With the rut fast approaching, you don't want to miss out on this one.
1, 2, 3, 4.
You're listening to the Australian Hunting and Beyond podcast with Matt, where we talk about hunting, shooting, fishing, camping, and everything else that the great outdoors has to offer. Let's get into it. Okay, long time coming this one. We've been chatting for a while now, Shayne, and man, just what an unbelievable story that the things you've gone through, like, it's unreal. I don't even know how to put it into words. So I'm really keen to hear just the whole thing and what has happened. And man, before we start, your resilience is just next level.
I appreciate that, Matt. It's just been a wild ride, and just happy to be here still.
Well, I'm glad you're here, firstly. And I want to know how the recovery and everything's going, but I think we need to go back to the start, I suppose, and find out a bit. So people that might not have heard your story, and it's been around, you were on MeatEater, which must have been pretty cool, and I'll ask you about that a bit later on. But do you want to get into the story so people know what you went through?
Yeah, absolutely, man. How far back do you want to go?
Wherever you want to take us.
I know this is I've listened to a couple of your episodes, and it's hunting, so I guess I'll start a little further back to kind of what got me into the outdoors, and we'll move on from there. My name's Shayne Burke, born and raised in Western Massachusetts, United States. From a young age, I was pretty much thrown into the wilderness that is the Northeast, which is definitely not as savage as the Western states where you got cougars and grizzly bears and wolves. A lot less things here want you dead, for sure. But yeah, so pretty much grew up always hanging out in the woods, just exploring, doing whatever. Hunting with my father was kind of the biggest thing that gave me respect for wildlife and nature in general. So let's see, I joined the U.S. Army in 2006 into 2007, finished all my training, graduated high school, went to Iraq for a year. Pretty much my job is a mechanic. So while I was there, I pretty much just was a fancy tow truck driver. Pretty much when things got blown up, broke down, whatever, my job was to recover it, take it to the next base, fix it, or whatever we had to do with it, and come up with a plan. Didn't see too much action. It was pretty chill in 2010 by the time I made it there, but as things were winding down, combat support was leaving, so things did get a little hairy at times, just because the operations, the combat op tempo slowed down, but my op tempo peaked because we were breaking down all the bases and stuff. So I was in a transportation company, so we drove pretty much all throughout Iraq. Got home in late 2010. Kind of, I'd say it was like 22 when I got home, I think. Yeah, 22. And pretty much just kind of got into dead-end job here, dead-end job there. Eventually making it into what I do now, which is an electronics mechanic for the U.S. Army as a civilian. So it's a pretty sweet gig. I don't hate it, but I don't love it. Went to Poland for a year. That was interesting. I was there when Russia invaded Ukraine, and we had to hastily pull out all of our troops out of Ukraine, which was an interesting feat. Got home from there, was out processing in Texas, found out I was going deaf in my right ear. Got home, went to the VA to see an ENT. Turns out I had a brain tumor, which really, that was like the big setback. Physically, I was just talking with a friend about it recently and how that was probably the hardest thing I've ever really had to go through. It was just so painful and whatnot. Because of that, my wife and I decided to rush our wedding so that we would be married in case anything, went poorly. Thankfully, nothing really went poorly other than me being completely deaf in my right ear now. Back up a little bit, I started hunting again in 2020 after my father passed away, just trying to reconnect with him mostly. And then just really found a new love for hunting. And that's been really interesting and really fun, just learning on my own pretty much without that mentorship that is a father. So it's been tough. I've had tag soup 3 years in a row now. So tag soup, you pay for your tags and you got no meat to eat. But that's all right because I'm just take every experience as a learning curve and try to improve the next time I go out. So after the brain surgery, my wife and I, almost 2 full years after, my wife and I decided that we'd be time to go on our honeymoon. And that kind of gets right into my story now. So we both kind of fell in love with each other through our, let's say, embracement of adventure and just the outdoors in general. We've taught each other a lot about certain things. She's an EMT. She has her wilderness EMT as well. She's in nursing school now. So we just really kind of developed this love for each other through adventure and wilderness. And we always wanted to travel together, but we just never had the chance because of life. Both of us, I've lost both my parents. She lost her mom. So in 4 years. So it was a really like tough time for us. We finally decided to take that leap and we rented a van and drove cross country. And, so this honeymoon trip was going to be a 3+ week trip, I think 23 days total. And essentially we didn't really have a solid plan. We just kind of knew places that we wanted to go, but there was no strict outline or anything like that. So, our first big destination ended up being Badlands National Park in South Dakota, which is a place that I fell in love with in 2020. It's just really cool. In my humble opinion, it's my favorite, and I would consider the best national park in America so far. Definitely that I've been to at least. I know that not everybody would definitely agree with me, but it's just something. It's just not overcrowded. Even in peak season, it's not a bad experience. You're not fighting traffic or anything like that. So that's why I like it. Anyway, so we spent a few days there. We moved on to Buffalo Gap National Buffalo Gap National Grasslands, and that was pretty cool. Something different, just vast land right outside of the Badlands National Park, and we spent a couple nights there, going in and out of the park. From there, we moved on to Wyoming, and let's see, we stopped in a couple towns. It's a pretty long drive. Had some fun, made some stops, went shed hunting, did some photography. It was pretty cool. Finally just like made it to the west, like true west together. And so after that, we moved on to Yellowstone, which is also in Wyoming. Yellowstone's a pretty big park. You got Montana, Idaho, and Wyoming all in the park. So that's pretty cool. So spent some time there. Got a lot of pictures of wildlife, which is like one of my favorite non-hunting hobbies at this point, which can kind of involve scouting for hunting, if you will, too. So it's kind of nice. Anyway, so we spent 3 days there, and on the morning of May 19th, we woke up, and that's when we decided that we were going to drive south to the Tetons and do a little looking for an owl species that I've never seen in person. And when you're kind of a bird nerd, one of the things we call it is a lifer. So it's like the first time you see it, it's a lifer for you. So it would have been pretty cool to see one. I think I saw one at a distance, but I couldn't confirm because it was just pretty far. So anyway, we're driving south to the Tetons, and my wife and I did some research on figuring out where we might be able to find one of these birds because we didn't see any in Yellowstone. So at this point, I pretty much checked every major animal off my list except for a cougar and a wolverine. And like seeing a wolverine is pretty hard in Yellowstone. I think there's only a very, very small number of them. So that was like a Hail Mary if I saw one. But so lots of grizzly bears, wolves, coyotes, elk, moose, antelope, everything. So at that point, I kind of already had my fix, but I really wanted to see great gray owl, and it was pretty important to me. I don't know why, but when I woke up that morning, I just had this weird ominous feeling, just like real heavy weight on me, and I just couldn't shake it. I almost like canceled like looking for this bird, but it was on the way from the. It's pretty interesting because the south exit of Yellowstone National Park, I believe, is only 10 miles north of the north exit of the Tetons, right? So they're super, super close. Same road to and from. It's all one big ecosystem. So anyway, we found out that we could find them on this mountain called Signal Mountain. And so my wife and we parked at this small satellite parking lot. There's this paved road that goes up the mountain, and we just wanted to take the dog for a short walk. And if time allowed, I was going to separate from them and go off on my own little adventure for an hour or two. And so, yeah, we walked the dog up the road. The regulations for the national parks, you're only allowed to dogs aren't allowed more than 100 feet off the road. So, and that's for your safety, their safety, and other animals' safety. So we adhered to that. We didn't, we never went off the road with the dog. Walked with the dog for about half a mile. My wife decided to turn around with the dog. I told her, I'll be back in the parking lot from somewhere between an hour and a half. And I even set an alarm to make sure that, like, when that hour was up, I knew to be walking back to the parking lot because I'm very, very, very bad with time when I'm in the woods. So we separated. At this point, we had bumped into, I don't know, half a dozen people maybe. So I kind of had this like false sense of security up there. I was walking on and off the trail. I made it up, not even up the whole mountain of Signal Mountain, but made it up. I was just following this trail, and I decided to go off the trail. So once I went off the trail, I saw some actual grizzly bear scat. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. That's kind of scary. But it was pretty old, but that was like the first like reminder that, you're in the wilderness. It's just you out here, So at that point I started to get a little nervous, and I was just like, all right, my alarm went off. I knew I had to get back to the car. And so I looked at the map or the GPS on my phone, and I was like, okay, I can either walk back to the trail, walk down the trail and take the road down, which will probably take another hour and a half, or I can just beeline it through the woods straight to the car in a straight line. And I'd probably be back to the car in half an hour, 40 minutes at most. So I was like, oh, I'll do that. So I'm going through the woods. At this point, I kind of gave up on finding the bird. I'm a little bit more engaged with my level of sight as opposed to looking up. And I'm just kind of romping through the woods. I'm kind of talking out loud. I'm checking my phone, making sure I'm staying on the azimuth I shot. And while I'm doing this, I just noticed in my periph this grizzly cub just running up this hill. And my initial thought was just like, oh, fuck. That's a grizzly cub. And my heart just sank, and I know my pupils probably just exploded and like went into primal mode. And first thing I did was I grabbed my bear spray. And as I grabbed it, I was familiar with it. I practiced with it, but not enough to like recognize that in that like fight or flight moment, how to take the safety off efficiently. And so I in turn like looked up, saw the mom coming at, really, really close. She was probably 10 yards at this point. And so I like, looked down at the safety. I popped it off, looked up, and then she's like basically on top of me. And I don't know why, but I just decided not to spray her. I don't remember if I tried. At this point, things get real fast and fragmented. So I had, kind of tried to posture up and make myself look bigger and kind of like yell at her a little bit, but she was just tried to call her bluff. And at a certain point, I just knew she wasn't bluffing. And I figured, I think my best chance of surviving this is to just turn around and go for a ride. And so that's what I did. And I went right into like the defensive position where basically you lay on your stomach, you put your hands and arms behind your neck like this, and you just want to try to protect your arteries in your neck and try to keep your vitals to the ground. When she made contact with me, it felt like I just got hit by, I don't know, like a Mack truck, and just leveled. And she had bit my shoulder, so she like kind of jumped and bit into my shoulder and took me down from my shoulder. The momentum sent her kind of forward, so then she had to like turn around and come back onto me. And she, at this point, she was pretty slow and cumbersome, and she just like stepped right on my back. And I just remember just like burying my face in the dirt, and then she just started biting my legs and just ravaging my legs, picking me up, throwing me, slamming me on the ground. And she did this for like 30 seconds maybe. And then at one point, I'm not really sure, but she had me like, I just remember dangling in the air and having my elbows into the ground, and she had lifted me up a little bit. And I think she was holding me from my right leg. And I just remember feeling like an unmeasurable amount of pain all of a sudden that was vastly different from the other bites. And I just let out like this blood curdling scream, just kind of just being like, just end it. Like, stop playing with me. If you're just going to do it, do it. And she just kind of like just dropped me and then stepped on my back. And then I assume went to bite my head. That's just an assumption. But what happened was I had, the bear spray up like this behind my head. And so when she went to bite my head, she got, my hand here, this big scar on my hand, my wrist, but she also ended up biting the can. And I truly believe that if that can wasn't still in my hand, she would have bit into my head and actually punctured my skull and crushed it, because these are animals that literally can bite a bowling ball and break it in half. So my tiny little head never would have stood a chance. So yeah, once she bit into the can, I just heard this pop. And then I did actually believe, like in that quick moment, that she actually did bite my head. I felt this warm sensation flowing down my back, so I immediately associated that with blood. And all of a sudden, like I realized that everything had kind of stopped, and I just heard her thumping and like kind of snorting and sneezing as she ran away. And then I was like, wait a second, you're still alive. And I just did like a push up. I looked where she was going, and then I was like, well, the only option I have is to go the opposite way. Like I'm not going to chase her or go remotely in the same direction as her. So I took off running back up this mountain, which was pretty steep. And I ran for, I don't even know how long. And I just kind of like, I could see all the blood all over me. And I've never seen my body bleed like this before. I mean, I've been hurt before, but this was just insane. I looked at my hand and I was just like, kind of like, oh crap. Like, if that's that bad, I don't want to know what the rest of me looks like. And so I had to like jump over trees that had fallen down, had to crawl under some of them. I ran for, I couldn't tell you exactly, but then I kind of like stopped. I was like, I should check my phone, see if I have my phone. Grab my phone was in my hip satchel that I had on. And so I grabbed that. I look at it and I'm like, holy crap, I got service. I'm going to call my wife and tell her I love her. And sorry that I had to die on our honeymoon. And so I called her. When we got connected, she was all happy and giddy. And I was like, she's like, hey, what's up? Kind of like she usually does. And I was like, I got attacked by a grizzly bear. And she's like, what? I was like, I got attacked by a grizzly bear and I think I'm dying. And she was just like, being an EMT, she instantly was just like, no, you're not. Actually, she's like, where's your first aid kit? She knew I have tourniquets in my first aid kit. And I was like, I left it in the car in my other bag because, this was supposed to be an hour excursion. Should have been better prepared in that sense, but I wasn't. So she's like, okay, well, you know what to do. Like, you know how to improvise tourniquets. Just improvise, cut your gear up, make tourniquets out of them. How, she's asked me how bad it is. And basically I was just like, just call 911. I need to get somewhere safe before. I was like, it's not an artery bleed. So I know I'm got some time, but, might not have a lot of time. So we hung up and I kept running up the hill and I got to this place that just wasn't, the trees weren't as thick and dense. And, I had like a 365 view of this entire plateau. I was able to kind of scan the horizon and be like, so I felt, at least I'd see something coming if something came at me. So what I ended up doing there was doing a little triage, did my blood sweeps, took all my gear off, took my hoodie off, just trying to like see where I'm bleeding from. I really didn't even know I was bleeding on my shoulder yet. I had no idea what was wrong with my shoulder. So at that point, I'm putting two tourniquets on my left leg, got one tourniquet on my right leg, made some windlasses out of some pretty thick sticks. At this point, Chloe had already arranged with the Rangers. She's already got 911 rescue coming. So pretty much I just sat up there by myself and just kind of contemplated what to do next. And every little while I would move a little bit to see like how much blood was still pulling up underneath me. And I had realized, like there's less and less blood every time I move. So that was good. I knew I was at least slowing the bleed down. So yeah, basically I don't remember exactly how long I was up there by myself. I had recorded a video just in case, they find me dead. And so luckily, I didn't have to ever use that video. Let's see. I think I ran about half a mile from where the original attack happened. And eventually basically technical difficulties with my GPS. I didn't have a good enough signal to like all the coordinates that the GPS was producing were inaccurate. They're off by like pretty far. Like when we gave the coordinates to the Rangers, they were like, that is nowhere near Signal Mountain. There's no way that's where he is. Which turned out to be true. I was given false coordinates. So eventually the 911 operator and I connected and, she's like, all right, we're putting the helicopter in the air. Let us know if you can hear it. And I was like, yeah, I can hear it. And I was like, I can see it. And she's like, oh, okay, that's amazing. Like, give me some directions on so I can relay to them on how to get to you. And I was like, yeah, if you just tell them stop right now, turn to their 3 o'clock, fly straight, they're going to fly right over me. And so that's what they did. And they flew right over my right shoulder, around the backside of me, stopped again, and then they spotted me. And I don't know why, but I had this like inherent idea that I should just crawl to them as they're hovering, like, I don't know, probably 100 yards away, honestly. So I started to crawl to them. And as I did that, I heard someone call my name, and a ranger came up from behind me. And as soon as I saw him, I was just like, I think his name is, not Chase. I can't remember his name. Crap. One of the rangers, wicked cool dude. He shows up, and, we exchanged some dialogue, just kind of asked me my name, even though obviously I'm the guy in the woods that's dying. But so we talk briefly. He's instantly starts working me, cutting all my clothes off, making me real embarrassed. It was very cold out. So yeah, I asked them not to harm the bear if I had a vote on the matter. And pretty much instantly there was, I feel like I blinked and all of a sudden there was like 12 rangers surrounding me, and I never felt more safe in my life. And yeah, so they started working me, just basically stuffing me with gauze in every hole that was bleeding. It was pretty rough. They got me stable, and then they did what's called a short haul. So basically they lowered this device down, wrapped me up like a burrito, hoist me up, and then they flew me to a parking lot nearby. And then they dropped me there. Once they drop me, they throw me in the ambulance, and then they start working on me again. I finally got my first dose of any pain management, which basically just took the edge off. But in there, I got to see my wife for the first time, I was just trying to be pretty like strong for her. And, I just like asked her not to cry. I was like, I'm okay. We're going to get through this. It's just, it's just how our lives are going for now. So we go to Jackson Hole. It was about a 45-minute drive. And I couldn't go into surgery right away because right before we started the hike, we had lunch. So they couldn't work on me. So I had to wait a few hours before I could go into surgery. It sucked, but it was an interesting experience in the hospital. I was only there for a day. I got released the next night, and then started the unfortunate fallout of what happened. I suddenly, I didn't come out to the public who I was yet, but seeing all the misinformation being passed around and stuff is pretty incredible. How fast all that happens. But yeah, so from there, we left Jackson. I was cleared of any wrongdoing. The bear was cleared of any wrongdoing, which made me very happy. Then we had a 2-week drive home, and I had all these holes all over me. And unbeknownst to me at the time, they thought my shoulder was just a dislocation. Turned out that it was an insane, severe fracture. She basically bit my shoulder blade in half and separated all kinds of connective tissue in my clavicle and collarbone. So that sucked. That's kind of what happened in a ballpark.
Man, like, we don't have anything like that here. And I love the States. It's such a great place. I've been over there. Yeah, but it's only up the north end of like the top of Australia. Oh, yeah. So for me, I'm down in Sydney, which is on the east coast, and we're pretty sort of like lower midway. And Australia's such a big place, like vast spaces. And I've travelled right through. I've gone up to the Northern Territory a few times, and we've got them, but you sort of know they're around water. And if you're smart around water, the chances of anything happening are very, very low. Where I sort of look at what you guys face over there with bears and cougars and, animals that will prey on you so you can just be walking along like you were. And, in an instant, things can just change like it has for you.
Yeah.
It's hard to comprehend that here a little bit, because we can go for a walk in a national park and the ones we're looking for is snakes. And if you're smart, you stick to trails. If you make sure I wear gaiters. The reality is most of the time you're not going to step on them, or they're going to leave before. They don't really actively chase you. A couple of species are a bit more aggressive than others, but nothing like that. And then you put into it, I'm guessing the bear was just being a good mum and protecting its cub from, what it saw as you being the threat. Snakes aren't going to do that here. Crocodiles aren't going to do that here. So it's sort of that extra element. And it's just a different, it's hard for me to wrap my head around, because when I go to the bush and I go hunting or I'm out there, it's not something that's in the back of my mind. The worst thing you're probably watching for is people, other than that. So it's a very, very unique situation. Hey there, listeners. Are you looking for that awesome hunting t-shirt or hoodie to level up your wardrobe? Well, head over to the AHB store and check out the range that we have to offer. We have a variety of different collections for you. So whether it's supporting the show, hunting, fishing, camping, drone fishing, or something else outdoors, we probably have something there that is for you. Each piece is designed so that you can look great whilst representing your outdoor passion. Whether you're down the local, hanging with friends, training for the rut, or just chilling at home, there's a design to suit. Just search Australian Hunting and Beyond Linktree and head to the store. What are you waiting for? You're just one click away from representing that outdoor passion with style. So let's get into that new clothing. Man, I've got so many questions for you, because it was just like, I'm so glad that everybody is, relatively unscathed, as in you're all here, Bear and yourself.
Yeah.
How many bite marks, how many puncture marks did you have?
So there was a total of 9 surgical sites. And then there was, I think 15 sites that needed medical intervention. So like flushing, cleaning. The worst one was the one where she had me and she bit my femur. And the whole bite femur thing, that's a total speculation on my part. I know, like, when your bone is even like touched with a toothpick, it's excruciatingly painful. So I just know that, like, that was so much more painful. And it was the last time she had me in her mouth by my leg. That wound was massive. It was 9 centimeters long. And I didn't get to see it, but my wife, and I'm kind of mad she didn't take a picture, but she said the amount of my innards that were popping out of that wound was pretty gruesome, that it actually made her sick. She's glad. To this day, she's like, I'm glad you didn't see that, because it was pretty bad. So they were able to fix everything. Yeah, I had a total of 62 staples. The freakiest thing was just seeing my hand ripped open like that. And it was so insane, because, like I've talked about this on, I don't know, at least 20 different like podcasts or anything like that. And, I always say, like if she hadn't bit that can, if I hadn't had that can there, she would have tore right through my hand. My hand would probably be not a hand anymore at best. My wrist, I could see my bones through my wrist. And who knows what she would have done to my head. So, and like you said, she just perceived me as a threat, and I can't fault her for that. At the end of the day, like, that's her home, and she has to fight for every day, so I get to go home to a warm bed, surrounded by the people I love, warm home, open arms, and she's constantly fighting for her life and her cub's life. So, and that's part of why they're so aggressive. A lot of times, if there's no cub involved, these grizzlies actually, especially these ones that are used to people, they really aren't aggressive. Like they'll walk right past you as long as you don't look them in the eyes and you don't posture to them. Like there's countless interactions filmed where this bears aren't that bad, but you always got to be careful of that one bear that it's not the mass of them. It's always just there's a 1% of bear out there that are just going to do something crazy. She wasn't that. Like she just happened to be protecting her cub, but yeah.
I am a bit shocked that you're only in hospital for 1 day. Like nothing to what you went through, but I just had we just went on holidays and I copped a couple of wasp stings that turned infected. My hand blew up like a balloon. And for a point there, they were going to keep me in the hospital for 5 days with an IV. I end up having the IV at home, but like I sort of sit there and go, man, not even comparable. Mine was far worse, obviously. No, just jokes. But you've just, you've got a day and you're out.
That was mind blowing to me. Go America healthcare, I remember like they came in like, so we're going to discharge you today. And I was like, what, really? And she's like, yeah, the only reason why you would need to be here now is because of infection. And she's like, you're done with your IV. So at this point, it's all oral. So, we understand you're traveling and this wasn't in your plan to stay at somewhere. But she's like, you're welcome to stay here, but it's going to be like $7,000 a night. And I was like, yeah, we'll get a hotel.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
Yeah. The park did an investigation, on me criminally. Just, one of the things, I'm sure you've seen it or heard of it, but they call them Taurons. Tourists.
Yeah, I'm on that Instagram.
Nice,
Taurons of Yellowstone, and I love watching it, but I just sit there and shake my head. And don't worry, we got plenty of them over here too.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. That page is really, really genuine and nice to me. They like when they made the post, they're like, we want to make it very clear Shayne is not a Tauron. He did everything right. It's just, it happens. And so I was really grateful for that. Even though some people would disagree, that's okay. But yeah, that was like crazy to me at first, but when they explained it to me, I was like, all right, that makes sense. Like I could have been an asshole out there that just was messing with these bears. They don't know. So I gave them, they held my phone from me for 2 days. They kept all my belongings. And they came over to the hotel and sat down with me, and they were like, there's an easy way to do this and a hard way to do this. And here's the easy way, here's the hard way. I was like, oh, we'll do it the easy way. I was like, I know I wasn't doing anything wrong. So I let them go through my phone. I showed them everywhere, all the pictures. I showed them, gave them the GPS of every picture I took. I had nothing to hide. And they found me not at fault and the bear not at fault. And that's one of the things I kept saying. I was just like, please, like, don't kill this bear. Like it had a cub with it. Like that is Grizzly Bear 101. Like it is what it is, anyway. So yeah.
I look at it a couple of different ways. Talking about the GPS there, I've had a couple of issues with, we use a program here called Avenza, and it's off the iPhone, or I use an iPhone anyway. Mm-hmm. And GPS wise, it'll bounce me around and it will tell me I'm going in a certain direction and I'm not, and spins me around really badly. I always carry a backup GPS just to be safe. And the way we have to hunt here is on public land anyway, you need to have a map and a GPS locator, etc. Were you just using the phone and that's what was out? And
yeah. So I was just using my phone mostly because where I was, I have a pretty good sense of direction. Like I knew, what way I was heading when the attack happened. I was heading east or southeast. I knew the road was to the east. So I just knew, like, as long as I walked east, I knew I was going to hit the road. And then I knew I just needed to walk dead south. So it wasn't like I was way out there. When they rescued me, I was only 900 yards away from the road post-attack. So when the bear actually attacked me, I was probably like 500 to 600 yards away from the road. But after the bear attacked, I ran like very far diagonally and uphill. So it felt very, very far. But yeah, I can only speculate where I was attacked, but I did save the location on my phone where I was picked up. And so we, in America, we use an app called OnX. And that's just, it works really well if you have service. And if you don't have service, you're not going to have service, then you can download the maps to the area. And then I had Google Maps open as well. And so I was like kind of using both systems to see where I was. And so if OnX wasn't working well, I'd go to Google. Google was working pretty good. And so I would just kind of bounce between the two apps. But the one thing that really sucked about this was like I let my guard down. And I think about this the most probably. Like there would be time, like I think it was Tuesday morning, I was walking into work and I just kind of laughed for a second. And I'm like, and I just said to myself, even out loud, like sometimes I'll just think of something and just talk, like say something to myself real quick. And I go, what'd I say? I was like, it's always when you let your guard down, something happens. Like, and I just chuckled and I thought about like not having, because we have a sat phone, we have a Garmin satellite phone with us. You know, my wife took it with her, which, you know, all things considered, like, not that she's not capable of these things, but I rather, even though she was only half a mile from the car, if something happened to her in that half mile, I would have rather her have that than me. Just because like it's just the way a man feels. Like regardless, like I know she's more than capable of taking care of herself and doing things, but as a man, like that's just something that you think about. You're like, oh no, resources go to them first before me, you know. And clearly, like, not for nothing, and it's not a flex in any way, shape, or form, but I've always been known to be able to take a hit, clearly. So, like, that's just kind of my mentality with that. Unfortunately, she did have it, and that would have made the rescue effort so simple. Unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. Unfortunately, you know, I left my first aid kit in the car because I let my guard down, and I didn't think to. I was like, oh, we're just walking up this road. I might go off the road by myself, but I don't think I will. I don't know. And I literally had like a 8-liter or 10-liter backpack on instead of my 40-liter pack with my first aid kit inside of it. So, you know, those are little things that like I definitely, they just would have made the overall experience like 10% easier. You know, having the 2 tourniquets in there would have slowed and stopped my bleed down like that. And then I would have had all these compression bandages that I would have been able to really stop that bleed. Luckily, I didn't need a blood transfusion or nothing. So I didn't bleed that much, but it was a lot of blood. Like probably close to needing one, but yeah. So.
Yeah, right. Like, so I got a mate who he does something similar to Onyx. So shout out to Rob at Athena Spatial, and I love what he does because he does the satellite mapping. So when we hunt, it's like a PDF almost that's on your phone, and it will, if you haven't got service, it still gives you your location. But for me, I like his style because I can get to see everything in sort of like topographically as opposed to just the map. I can actually see the landscape, which I think is fantastic. And I think it's an unreal resource for hunting and, you know, pretty similar to Onyx. Obviously, they're massive over there and we don't really have them here. So I sort of see that and go reflect on a couple of things because we've just had a hiker be lost down in Kosciuszko National Park, which is probably similar to Yellowstone in the sense of like just this large park, well known here in Australia. And they were missing for, I think, maybe 8 to 12 days. I can't remember exactly what it was, but nothing on them. No PLB, no sat phone, no locator, and this huge resource of people thing. And I just think it's unreal because I'm sort of similar to yourself is that, you know, I have multiple tourniquets, whether they be in my pack, I've got them in my cars. I've got them in each of my car anyway, just in case, because you never know you're going to need them, rather than having to make a makeshift one. And my first aid kit, I know I've got one in each car and then my pack. And I'm all about preparing for the worst. I'd rather carry that little bit extra weight and not need it than get into a situation and need it, because you just never know. So I'm really glad that I think your wife probably helped you out a lot there, because with her experience being able to talk you through the whole thing, and probably your background too. I know the military does help you in those respects of being prepared for different things and challenges that you're going to face. So it's pretty crazy. Mate, I want to talk to you about your resilience, because I'm a school teacher and I've spoken to my kids at school about your story. And, you know, it is an unreal one, overcoming brain, tumor in the brain, overcoming this bear attack. And, you know, it's funny. Some people have really great resilience. Some people struggle with the smallest of things. What is it that how do you cope with some of these crazy things that have happened in your life?
That's a really good question. And I really wish I had a good answer for it. I don't know, man. It's something I've thought about a lot. I have goosebumps right now. That's really nice of you to say. And that's part of it. My upbringing was pretty rough. Not to get into nitty gritty of it, but like I had a mother that basically hated my existence, treated me really poorly. She was a drug addict. So I think my resilience just kind of manifested out of just knowing hardship and just knowing that like it does get better. And in these moments, they might be our defining moments, but they're fleeting. They come and they go. And then I just hold on to these little happy moments. You know, when that bear is attacking me, I thought about my wife. I thought about my family. But one of the simplest things I thought about was just like coming home after work every day and I get greeted by my dog, and just knowing that like this moment could very potentially take that away from my dog. Like that was a thought that I had. And so I think the way I've just kind of developed this like tendency of just kind of putting my head down and trying to get through it. And don't get me wrong, it hasn't been easy. Like none of this has been easy. And, you know, I'm in therapy. I literally just talked about this in therapy today because my therapist asked like a pretty provoking question. And I was like, no, I'm not okay, but I will be. And that's just pertaining to just how I was feeling this week. It's not that I feel that way every day, but it's not linear, right? Like I wake up in different moods every day. We all wake up and, you know, so yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it, and just kind of holding on to the happy moments in life, knowing that, you know, this too shall pass. And, you know, one day, like this is just going to be a story that I get to tell, you know, hopefully my kids and grandkids, that, you know, dad and granddad is kind of a badass and survived something that was pretty crazy. Not to be a little edgy about it, but you know, it's pretty crazy. So I think that's the best way I could answer that question. It's a very good question. I'm going to think more about it, but yeah, I think it's just resilience over time. You know, like what they say, like a diamond is created under pressure, right? Like, so I think, you know, if you're faced with hardship, just know that it does get better. And, you know, the bad moments are way more fleeting than the good. And, you know, it'll pass. So.
No, look, I think that's a good answer. I say to my students all the time is that, you know, the hardest thing that you know is the hardest thing that you actually know, and that someone somewhere else has gone through something 10 times worse than you, and they've been able to come out the other side and have this positive outlook. And, you know, yes, there's challenges. Yes, you're going to have good days and bad days, but to keep that positive outlook as best you can. And I always sort of, when I have bad days or whatever, that's where I go. I go, someone else out here has 10 times worse than us, and they're getting through it, and they're probably, some of them would be happy about it. I need to, you know, suck it up and move forward. And I think that's, you know, it's, everyone has their own different coping strategies and mechanisms and things like that. So I'm glad to hear that you're obviously in therapy and speaking about it. I can't imagine the flow-on effects from something like that happen. Have you got back out there? That's probably the one for me, is that a lot of people after something like this, even though you're passionate about nature, would be going, look, not for me, not right now anyway.
Yeah. So like I said, like out here, honestly, I think in the Northeast of America, the most dangerous animal you're probably going to run into is a moose. And outside of a moose, probably like the next one would be like a rabid coyote. Generally speaking, like there are other dangerous animals, but usually they just don't have something right with them. Black bears, they're not too dangerous. They're pretty mild. I've never had one not run away from me when I encounter them. So, but yes, I've been out. It took, let me see, this happened in May. I don't think I went out in the woods until about August, I think. And that was just like here, and it was very eerie because it was like it felt very similar to where it all happened, even though we're thousands of miles away. So that was like my first whatever, like getting in there, dipping my toe in the shallow water. Hunting season came around in October. We did go back to Wyoming in August as well. We didn't go anywhere too far into the park. We actually like went to film at the TV studio, and I got to meet my rescuers 100% like coherent, not like fighting for my life. So that was really incredible. And that's actually going to air soon, which is pretty cool. So, I can send you a link for it on YouTube when it's out on YouTube if you want.
Please do.
But yeah. So we've been back to Wyoming. It was really funny. My first day of hunting, I'm walking in the woods. Yeah, I get really excited during archery season. So I'm up at 3 a.m. I'm driving. I get to my spot by 4. I'm walking in pitch black, right? Like because of my brain tumor situation, I have to use a headlamp. I can't walk in the dark because I lose that. Like my balance is really bad in the dark when I don't have that visual acuity. So I have to have a flashlight. So I'm walking, and then all of a sudden I just see 2 eyes, like, I don't know, 10 yards, 15 yards in front of me. And I was like, oh God, I was like, please be a deer, please be a deer. And like, I turned my headlamp higher, and of course it is a deer, but I was like, please don't be a bear or moose. Please don't be a bear or moose. And it ended up being a deer. And I was like, oh, thank God. And I just kept walking in, and I was like, like that really like got the hair on the back of my neck sticking up. And I was just like, man, I got just a bow, and, like, I'm not sure about the, the gun laws and everything in Australia. I know they're pretty restricted for the most part. But, and out West, when you hunt, obviously you have, no matter what, you can have a sidearm. So you can have a pistol with you as a secondary defense should your rifle malfunction, or if you're just archery hunting, you got a better option than a bow. So out here, you can't do that. If you're caught with a pistol on you, it's go to jail. So, well, you just get a big fine probably. Anyway, so it definitely like, I had my bear spray with me just in case. Like, it's really funny because Steve Rinella, I listened to a podcast recently about, he was talking about grizzly bears again. And he mentioned how he'll never judge anyone for having bear spray in bear country, but he's like, I will always judge somebody who has bear spray on them not in bear country. And I was like, dude, the heck, man, I was attacked by a bear. And it's just like a nice warm and fuzzy feeling to have it on you. And it does, it works on every animal, and it works on creepy people too. So, yeah. It's definitely worth having. It doesn't weigh anything. It's less than what a pistol weighs. So yeah.
Well, bear spray or capsicum spray is actually banned here in Australia. We're not allowed to have it or carry it.
That's too bad.
It's insane. I sort of sit there, and you guys have got some great little devices. There's a good camping one that's for bears, I believe, but it's like a string, and then it pops off and just has like a bang and lights up the area with sirens and things like that. And I was like, that's so cool. I'd love something over here just for creepy people or whatever going on, because, sometimes you're out in the very isolated on your own, and just, that could be the difference in a being able to prepare yourself or not. So like there's some things there that, our rules are very different. Definitely no sidearms, most definitely not. What was that like? You got to go on MeatEater, and I did listen to that episode. That was a really, again, like your story is unbelievable. So, and I think you went on with your wife as well. It's been a while since I listened. And what was that like? Did they give you guys extra support and things like that?
They did in ways, yeah. I mean, so it was really cool. They obviously like they paid for basically everything but my wife's airfare. Which like they're like, well, we'll pay for you, but we don't pay for them. Which that's totally fair. Like Chloe was very much part of the story, and it was really important for her to go, not for anything. Like it very much felt like a really good way to kind of end our honeymoon, right? Like, because that was taken from us. This happened on, I think, day 8 of the trip. So we still had 2 full weeks of this trip left. And so they were just incredible, really good people doing really good things. They're, in my opinion, they're just the tip of the spear of conservation. And I think it holds some weight to all these people that like claim they love these animals and stuff. Like, it's fine, whatever. Like, you think you love them, but like, I don't think anyone loves animals more than true conservationist hunters, because like we build this rapport with these animals. Like we love the chase, we love all of that stuff, but all of our money and everything goes into conservation. Like it's not like Endangered Species Act and all that stuff. All that money comes from hunters. It doesn't come from anyone else. I mean, so I guess essentially if you buy ammo or a gun or camouflage, all that money goes to conservation, to wildlife. So it's pretty incredible. And I think these people, it's easy to hate hunters if you're a vegan or this or that, but like, you can really tell with their work that they genuinely care. It's not for anything other than loving their craft and, wanting to hunt to live and live to hunt. So they were really genuine. I still talk to a couple of them here and there. Built a little bit of a friendship with them. Steve's just a really good guy. Can't say enough nice things, man. They hooked me up with a crossbow while I healed, so that was incredible, because like it's a pretty nice crossbow, and I'm super thankful. So if any of them see this, and I'll definitely promote it on my Instagram, who I'm friends with some of them on there. Hopefully they do take the time to listen to it, and thank you guys, because it was a really, really incredible experience. We got to embrace Montana, Bozeman, Montana, of all places, and it was good. And I think they really, not for anything else, they gave my wife and I like a happy ending to our honeymoon. We really treated it like that. So I was really, really anxious too. It was really funny because Steve was just so nonchalant, and like I walk in and he's just like chilling in his office chair and flippy floppies, and just like turns and looks at me, and I'm like, "Hey, what's up, man?" And it was just like, I don't know. It was so funny. And it didn't like prep me for like when my cue was. So I remember like the first thing I say, I'm just like kind of caught off guard, not expecting, like he was just waiting for me to say something. So that was funny. But it was a great experience. Can't say enough good things about them.
I think they have done such great things for hunting and conservation in general. Mm-hmm. So I'm a big fan of everything that they do, because I call for it down here a bit more too. I think our conservation, I love the, I think it's the Pittman Robinson tax you've got over there, and we've gone sort of the opposite end of the scale here and gone sort of insane, where we're constantly battling to keep hunting rights, and it doesn't matter about the data. Like, we've got duck issues down here where they're restricting seasons or making them shorter, even though ducks have grown in population, it's just getting restricted. Or, we've got different mobs here that want to poison our deer because they're an introduced species, to wipe them off the landscape. And it's really difficult sometimes, a bit of a pill to swallow here, because we've got all these hunters that love, as you just said, hunters are true conservationists and wanting to help. And we've got so many obstacles in this country that don't even consider hunting as a viable option to keep populations under control. And, we've got crazy things that are like you can't hunt native wildlife pretty much, period. So kangaroos, you can't actually go and hunt them. You can cull them and there's a massive red tape, but their populations get out of control and then it's sort of this catch up. It's really a very weird system. I'd love for some of our politicians to look over at what you guys do, because I do believe it's probably the best suited model that would work in our country, and it would then fund so much conservation, which is the end goal for all of us. No hunter wants to see the landscape ruined or the animals kept out of balance. That doesn't make any sense to a person that wants to promote a good hunting, a love of nature. It's just insane. So it's very interesting, that sort of disconnection and that disproportionate view that some people have. So it's no, you guys are very good in what you do over there, and I definitely love it. The healthcare side, I've got to ask this because I know my students have been on me going, what was the end bill? Because I know my wife and I, she was one of her companies, she went over and helped set up a company over there, and she got offered a job opportunity, and we were genuinely looking at moving over there. And the only thing that stopped us was we were about to start a family and the whole healthcare system. Because over here, you've got still private health insurance that you pay for yourself, but it's damn good. And then you got the public side of things. So, like for an example, I keep saying just, but I had twins 2.5 years ago. And unfortunately, they came a little bit early and they had to be in what we call it NICU, which is Newborn Intensive Care Unit. And they were in there, but off the top of my head, it was like $1,500 a day per child. And they were in there for nearly 3 weeks. So it would have been extremely expensive, but my private health insurance covered all of it. So I think we had to pay, I think out of pocket, maybe $2,000. And then we got the public side where, if you, I went to the emergency twice last week or in the last fortnight with the wasp sting, and that didn't cost me a cent. I know it sounds so crazy. Bloody wasp sting. It does my head in that I had to go to emergency for a wasp sting because it got infected. but it cost me nothing. So
I don't hate bees, but I hate wasps, and I hate getting stung by anything with a stinger. It's just miserable. But I used to do lawn care, and I would run over like beehives, ground hives sometimes in the machines, and they would chase me, and all my colleagues would just stand still, but I would just react and run. They called it the Burke boogie because I would just and just run away. So I'm a big sissy when it comes to bees, but which is funny because I want to actually have beehives when we have property of our own. But anyway, I digress. So the healthcare, let's see, I don't remember the end balance for the bear attack completely. And so I would say an anomaly as far as payment goes, because being a veteran, having what we call service connected issues, basically, or diagnoses. So basically, what I can say is from diagnosis of brain tumor till my last appointment for brain tumor was over $300,000. And that was in a span of like 4 months, maybe. The VA paid for everything, took care of me. The bear attack, the only thing that I'm battling right now is just the ambulance ride. Again, I'm super, super fortunate for a couple different reasons. Number one, the VA does take care of emergencies. So this was an emergency. I don't care, any Americans that end up listening to this, I gave up years of my life, however political views you have, that's fine. I still sacrificed years of my life. I made an agreement with the government. It's their job to, take care of me from now on. Sorry that I'm a lightning rod for bad stuff, but anyway. So yeah, I know like the 45-minute ambulance ride was like 15 grand. The helicopter ride would have been about, I think, $30,000. I think something like that, something crazy. So the good thing about when you pay to get into a national park, the helicopter ride is included in that payment. So,
Okay, yep.
yeah, so that's amazing. And like the funny thing about it is like I like the idea of having your public insurance and then having your private insurance. I think we should model off that to a degree. The VA is a very social entity. Like it's lack of better terms, it's how a socialistic healthcare system would work. And like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I like the idea of having your public and then some private. And essentially, like between my VA healthcare and my private insurance, I still haven't paid anything. I mean, I might see a bill for the ambulance ride. I don't know yet, but they're battling that out right now. But aside from that, like, that's it. But it's pretty tough. Like, when I went through the brain surgery and stuff, I just couldn't imagine going through that without insurance. And prior to that, I had almost lost my right eye back in 2021, and a stick punctured my eyeball. And I didn't go through the VA for that, and so I did everything private. And again, like, I think everything all in all ended up being like $28,000, if I remember correctly, somewhere almost 30 grand for all the surgeries, all the checkups from specialists and stuff. I only paid $2,000 out of pocket, I think. And even like, yeah, I'm pretty sure it was just $2,000 out of pocket. So, but that was all private insurance. Yeah.
Man, well, hopefully three things: the stick in your eyeball, the brain tumor, and the bear. Hopefully, your run now is super smooth, because I think you've had more than enough bad luck for anyone. But look, mate, I'm extremely glad that you're here, that you are in good spirits about it. Being able to laugh about it and talk about it is a credit to you. And as I said before, the resilience you show is great. And I love that fact. And I know a lot of my students will probably listen to this one because they were super keen to hear this story and whatnot. So, and just my listeners in general as well, because, man, I really appreciate you coming on, and hopefully your recovery continues and everything goes very smooth and no major issues in the future. Touch wood for you.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. How old are your students? What grade?
I teach high school, so they generally anywhere between 12 and 18. So, but
Okay, cool.
I know the ones that were really keen. We were talking about this. My seniors, they're about 17, 18. So they, yeah, when this happened, we talk about all these different things, because I live in Sydney, and it's very sort of populated city, and a lot of my students, they've never left like the local area. They've never gone out into the bush. They don't understand that there's no cell phone reception, or there's not a road, or they just don't get that side of it. And they, like, even I was explaining to them, I had an accident last year when I was hunting. Is I was cutting up a deer, and just, I don't know what happened, but got my finger and sliced it very, very well, and had to go to the local hospital. So, did what I needed to do in the field and got to the hospital. But they don't have doctors there. They have 2 GPs in town that rotate. There's no actual doctor in the hospital. And the nurses are there, and then they've got some tech now that they can, in massive emergencies, they can link up with the bed and they can remote view and get advice from somebody for them to do it. So they couldn't believe that side of it, or that there was no doctor in the actual hospital. And so it's
That's
super
crazy.
interesting. Well, we're so dispersed, Australia, and I get it. You can't have in a very small town, you can't have a hospital that's packed with doctors sitting around doing nothing, because that's a cost, and especially the way our public system works. So, but it's always interesting to see that side of it and have those discussions about how different people do things. There's a lot of great things about our system. There's a lot of terrible things too. So it sort of goes a bit of both ways. But But
Yeah.
Shayne, look, I really appreciate you coming on. Thanks for giving up your time, and mate, keep recovering well. And what a story, mate. Your kids and grandkids, when they hear that story, they're going to idolise you. So no, that's the case.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. And thanks for your patience with everything. I know it was really hard to get connected, and, our time difference was a little tough, but I do appreciate you staying on top of it. And this is fun. So thanks for having me.
All good, mate. Not a problem. I will put all the links to your pages and everything on there. So get over to Instagram and show some support for Shayne, because he's, man, gone through a lot. But, mate, keep powering on the other side. I really love what you're doing. So, all right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Bye for now. You've been listening to the Australian Hunting and Beyond podcast with Matt. Thanks for tuning in, and can't wait to catch you next time. But in the meantime, if you want more, you can find it at linktr.ee/Australian Hunting and Beyond. That will give you our YouTube, Instagram, X, Facebook, you name it. We'll catch you next time.